There can only be one. There can only be one. Highlander. Who you are looking at is Christopher Lambert as Connor McLeod, the protagonist in the film Highlander and Immortal. There are other big characters here. Sean Connery plays Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. Latinos, we're funny. I have two birth certificates. One's Panamanian, one's American. The American has my name is William del Pilar. Uh, the Panamanian birth certificate has my name is William del Pilar Dominguez. I always joke around William del Pilar Dominguez Rodriguez Ramon Smith. I cracked myself up. Okay. So you have Sean Connery plays Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. And then you have the guy who stole the show, Clancy Brown, one of my favorite actors. I don't want to say favorite, but I always smile when I see him on the screen. I just like him. Everything he's done, I like. Clancy Brown plays the Kurgan, the last of an old Russian tribe. He is vicious. I mean, the guy just I'm sorry, Clancy. I love you to death, boy. But with the right makeup, you can play the perfect neo-Nazi, the perfect bad guy. And he played Kurgan is not a neo-Nazi. He just has that white look, at times, there. And there's towards the end of the scene, his character changes a little bit in physical form. Nothing outrageous. I mean, just how he looks, and he's phenomenal. Clancy Brown stole the show, and then there's Rock. Do I have Roxanne? I don't think so. No, I don't. So Kurgan. There's Roxanne Hart. She plays Brenda Wyatt. She's the love interest. She was really insignificant. Your classic the female plays the hero has to rescue her type role. How it would really be. I'm sorry, there's no 90-pound weakling's gonna or no 90-pound woman dripping wet's gonna take the Kurgan. They're out. Period. End of story. So you have Christopher Lambert, who back in the 80s and 90s was a successful leading man actor. He had his share of Greystoke, Highlander, A-list big movie releases, a lot of DVD releases, or I'm sorry, VHS releases. Where he played the leading man. Quite a career. I'm trying to think of an actor today. Were the ones I said. The ones in Warcraft. I'm trying to get back into Warcraft. Ben Foster, Dominic Cooper, Travis Fimmel. Actors that they had a few years span. Christopher Lambert had at least a 10-year span. And that's why I mentioned Clancy Brown. 2016, he plays Blackhand, the Orc Chieftain. In 1984, here's Clancy Brown playing the antagonist in the movie. And he kind of stole the movie. Side note, I'm trying to remember exactly, but he said he was paid nothing for this. I mean, he was probably paid the working wages, but it's he was kind of screwed over based off royalties and things of that nature. But the reason I started out with Highlander, there can only be one. It's Henry Cavill is going to headline the Highlander reboot, and Highlander is a sword. It's a science fancy. It's a fantasy. It's a sword and sorcery fantasy. You know, 1986, I said 84, but 1986 was the original film with Christopher Lambert as the immortal warrior Connor McLeod. The saga features epic battles. It's a vast mythology. In a stellar cast, obviously, that has Sean Connery, Clancy Brown. I say stellar because he had a stellar performance, and now it continues with Henry Cavill. This shot here that you're looking at Cavill is a shot from The Witcher. And this fight scene, you just go, oh my God, his fight scene, he has taken fight scenes to a new level. And the reason I say that, I mean, look at the Matrix. Look at a lot of these Chinese. They're wonderful, beautifully choreographed fight scenes, but they're kind of like dancing through them. It's kind of like, whoo, 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 whoo. There's no power. There was a John Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren. I forget. They're cyborgs. They were humans that turned into cyborgs. Uh, the one they did one years later. What was that called? What was that called? I remember now. Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning. That was the first movie. Let me show you a picture of it. I do have that. It was with Scott Adkins. Scott Adkins has been in a lot of movies: Star Wars, Doctor Strange, John Wick 4. He's one of those guys who should be much bigger than he is, but he's the real deal. He's taken martial arts to another level. And Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning was the first one I saw. I was like, oh my god, they were vicious fight scenes. You're like, oh. The final Matrix, or the first two Matrixes, maybe the first one was a little bit better, but the second and third ones, they were beautifully choreographed, but there was no power behind anything. It was like, they were just going through the motions. And it was obviously fake, but the CGI helped them make it look so good. Scott Adkins brings this violence to it, this physical violence that is so realistic at times. It's like, oh my God, you just feel the pain. And Henry Cavill brought that to The Witcher. A bit choreographed, but they were vicious, violent sword fight scenes. So when I saw that he was going to headline the Highlander reboot, I was so excited, because Highlander, it doesn't hold up as well. It's a cult classic, and I have a special fondness for it in my heart. Before I did doing this podcast, I went back to rewatch it. You can rewatch it on Pluto, and there's somewhere else you can rewatch it on for free. And I saw, and yeah, it doesn't hold up. The acting's decent enough. The fight scene, back then CGI was exorbitantly expensive, and this was not a very high budgeted movie in that sense. But what made it so magical was Russell Mulcahy, the director, was an MTV director. So he brought all this, the neon lights, the bright colors. It was like a movie, a music movie, a video movie at times. Not the movie itself, but how some of the scenes were done with the coloring, the cinematography. So, and now all this continues with Henry Cavill. To me, arguably the best action hero of this generation. And you're going to get a John Wick touch, which is a little depressing because he's another one of these choreographers. The first John Wick was pretty good. The second one was okay. The third one, in terms of the choreography, where they were just moving through the scenes, wonderfully done. But it was better than the Matrix, more realistic in that sense, but nothing of what Scott Adkins brought to Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning. But have high expectations though with Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill is not Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves in his 50s. So much you can do with a body like that. Henry Cavill is in his peak. He sat there and said, "I'm leaving for training because I'm going to do Highlander." I'm like, whoa, he's leaving for more training? I mean, after The Witcher, most actors would have been, I'm good enough, not him. And the John Wick director, Chad Stahelski, he did all four of John Wick films, and he's going to bring his vision to it. And I expect an action-packed movie. It's a reboot, promising an exhilarating cinematic experience. I said reboot, but it's not technically a reboot. They're going to try to create the canon from the old canon, but it's such a messed up universe, the Highlander universe, because at the end of the day, it's pretty much an open and closed movie. You're an immortal. At the end of the movie, there's only a handful of immortals left who are battling to be the final immortal. Thus, there can only be one. So it's hard to create a universe out of that. So again, the main actors in the original, Christopher Lambert played the protagonist, Connor McLeod. It's worth seeing. Clancy Brown stole the show, playing the role of the Kurgan, and Sean Connery as Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. So here's a premise of the older movie, and they're going to try to take as much as they can out of this. This is going to be a bit more of a prequel, so you're probably not going to see the ending of the first movie in the Henry Cavill version. But in the premise is they're immortals. In the present day, they're immortal warriors secretly battling each other throughout the annals of history to the present. They can only be killed by decapitation, and the less and less there are, it triggers something called the quickening, where they take. Well, I'm sorry. Every time they kill one another, it triggers the quickening, and that's where they take the energy of their defeated immortal enemy. That's how I always considered an angel battle to be in my mind. Angels battling. They defeat one angel, they suck up all of God's power that was given to that angel. And Connor McLeod, he's the Highlander. He's Scottish. He gets killed by the Kurgan early in the movie, and that triggers his immortality. He learns about the game through Sean Connery's character. Immortals can sense each other, and obviously some don't want to fight, so they just want to live their lives of immortality. Others seek them out because they want to be the last remaining one, because there's the prize, a mysterious and unimaginable gift. To be quite honest, I was let down at the end of the original movie. Is that it? You know, so this movie took place in New York City, the modern version, but there were flashbacks. That's what made it pretty cool, and the prize awaits the victor. So the overall theme of the Highlander movie, which will be carried over with the Henry Cavill version, is it delves into immortality, the love, the loss, the burden of watching loved ones age. My wife and I talk about this at times. What happens when one of us goes? We're like peas in a pod. We've been together for over 30 years. You just imagine being an immortal. I read there's vampire series, and a couple of vampires in the series are just tired of living, a couple thousand years old, just tired. And as you get older, you can kind of see that. I get that. I get that. Because I believe there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. I am beginning the path of my end years. So I kind of look back at things, and I'm happy with what I have done in life. I've accomplished a lot to have been an average Joe, and I'm happy and content with that. But I still want more adventure, so I don't want to die, people. Don't get me wrong. But what made the movie great, it blends the past and present through flashbacks. It creates an entertaining narrative, and it spans different periods of time. I won't give it away, but there's this funny duel with Christopher Lambert's character, Connor McLeod. So it's a blend of genres. Blend of fantasy, action, historical drama, and science fiction. But unlike Assassin's Creed, the game, it doesn't try to create real history and revise fake history to make it real history. We all know it's fake. It does nothing of that sort. And I'm just teasing to my next episode where I have another update of Assassin's Creed Shadows. But what makes it a cool classic? Iconic soundtrack by Queen, including classics like Who Wants to Live Forever. And with Freddie Mercury catching AIDS as passing, that song had its own meaning. Director Russell Mulcahy, he brought his music video background. It's a visually striking film. It doesn't hold up as well, but you can see for back then, it was visually striking. The memorable characters, specifically Clancy Brown playing Kurgan, a wild, crazy, unpredictable, and scary villain. Sean Connery did wonderful playing Ramirez. He was more of the swordsman. The working man's aristocrat. And Christopher Lambert played a great antagonist or protagonist. For its time, it was great sword fighting sequences and special effects. Nothing like it is today. Now, y'all are saying, well, what's the big deal, William? Here's the big deal. While it underperformed at the box office initially through home video releases, it made a lot of money and it became a cult classic. It spawned 4 films, 1 animated film, 2 television series, an animated series, a web series, too many books to list, a comic book series, soundtracks, video games, even collectible card games. So there are a lot of fans. See, we look at things, if I haven't heard about it, what's the big deal? You could have millions and millions upon millions of fans, and the average Joe may not have heard of it. This has created a bona fide universe. That's why they're going to try to the reboot's going to try to be more of an extension, a carryover of all the elements to keep the truth, not the truth, to keep the canon of everything that was created before it. Again, Clancy Brown stole the show. Intimidating presence, his physicality, his deep voice. It lent an imposing aura to the character. He was scary at the time, you know, his brutality and ruthlessness. He was a vicious, vile, evil character. He was a formidable adversary. You're like, dude, you don't want to fight him. You're gonna lose. That's the persona he gave off. He was born in ancient Russia, part of a cruel tribe, violent past, battles, betrayals, and all this added depth to his villainy. You know, there was an iconic duel, the climatic battle. And McLeod was everything you want in a hero, protecting of those who couldn't protect themselves, doing the honorable thing, making the right decisions, protecting those he wanted to, taking care of those he had to. There's a scene in there that is critical to the theme of the movie, and I'm not going to give it away, but his portrayal, again, Clancy Brown, combined menace, history, and memorable moments. There's a couple of car scenes in there, but the Kurgan to me is one of cinema's most iconic villains. In the end, there can be only one. Highlander's combination of originality, style, music, and storytelling has allowed it to achieve a unique cinematic immortality. So, what makes Cavill the right choice? Physicality, Cavill's imposing presence, his chiseled physique. Today, you cannot be like Christopher Lambert. For leading men, have to be chiseled. They have to look the part. The role, he's got to look like the role of an immortal warrior. His portrayal of Superman in the DC universe demonstrates his ability to embody power and powerful characters. His swordsmanship, you know, as Geralt in The Witcher. Oh my God! If you haven't seen it, you got Netflix. Watch it just for those scenes. His experience will enhance the film's sword fighting sequences, and that's why I'm so excited. And if you've seen The Witcher, you'll know the potential for the fight scenes will be greater and better than The Matrix or John Wick. He has great fan appeal thanks to popular franchises. I say that with a question mark because he's had quite a few bombs too. You know, but his involvement will attract his base and hopefully existing fans of Highlander that are older. And like I said, he's been in many busts, so it's not a given. And obviously, Chad Stahelski, he's a world builder. I mean, John Wick, there's the Continental, it's already a series on Peacock. So he wants to build a world here. So with his Cavill's talent, Stahelski's direction, I think the reboot can be better. So what they're talking about is merging the old with the new. They're bringing in elements of the movies and the television shows to do a prequel type storyline for The Gathering, where the final few gather and they battle it out. The filming is set to begin in January, this coming January 2025. It's set to release in 2026. There was just an update in the past few days, and I don't know why they say it's an update. It's just clickbait, because I knew they were already looking in spots to film in Scotland. So now they're saying, we're going to film in Scotland in January. That's kind of what I assumed, and they plan on going deeper into the characters and the lore than the movies themselves did. The budget is 100 million. And that's awesome, which means they're only going to need 300 million to break even and to make a profit. So thus they can possibly have a new franchise here. And I like that. They're not being greedy anymore. I mean, 260 million to make Indiana Jones with a Harrison Ford who was too old to be Indiana Jones, and they make it woke and pass it on to a woman who it's too fake half the scenes with her, CGI's the other half. Yeah, just spent a lot of money for a bomb. The Marvel is the same way. The Blue Beetle was more along the lines that was a low budget at 130 million, didn't make its money back. It was woke. They were marketing it as woke, proudly marketing it as woke. Cavill's not going to have any of that. This movie is more than likely not to be woke. Going to be, I mean, look at the John Wick movies. They're not woke. Yeah. So Cavill is the only confirmed actor, but the reboot, I can say, will probably stay faithful to the overall premise of the franchise. Now that said, it's not a great franchise because at the end, the first movie was beginning, middle, and end. You know, a final few immortals left. They're at the gathering, which isn't really a gathering, which kind of was a disappointment to me in the movie. And then there's a final battle for there can be only one. So once that movie was done, anything else they had to kind of rework the canon, and they reworked it into a mess, but it's still canon. So they're going to try to figure all that out. So While Cavill will elevate the role of Connor McLeod. Sorry, Christopher Lambert, I loved you to death. You were one of my favorite actors in your time. But Henry Cavill, I think, can do so much more for this because of the physicality, the sword fighting, etc. The trick for Stahelski is to find the Kurgan, to find somebody who can exude that violence. I don't want somebody small. I don't want somebody, I want the big Russian Kurgan. Keep that lore going. Make him vile, evil. I guess the people who are woke will like that, but that's not what I'm referring to. I just make him, keep it true to the character. Make him vile and evil. I thought Mario Van Peebles did okay in the sequels, playing the bad guy. By the end of the day, there was only one Kurgan. So who can play and do justice to Kurgan, and who can play a working man's aristocrat in Sean Connery, as he did with Ramirez? That was an important role, and he was a mentor to the Highlander. So those are two very important casting points or casting issues they're going to have to deal with. But Cavill's combination of physicality, swordsmanship, and star power makes him the ideal choice to breathe new life into this classic fantasy franchise.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.